Hey, Stoney here with another tutorial of Mechabellum, and this tutorial is specifically for those players who are between the 1500 to 1800 MMR, and you want to be watching this if you want to get to 1800 and beyond. Let's go. So up until this point, we talk about some basic unit counters. We talk about the importance, right, the four pillars of a good composition: chaff clear, anti-HP, and anti-air. We'll talk about how we learn through deliberate practice instead of just blindly copying the strategies of high-level players. We really want to get down to the individual unit. We're trying to figure out what role these individual units play in a game. And of course, how do we enable these units so that they're shooting at the right units? Once you get through all that, and especially if you're playing standard, you should be pretty comfortable, especially in standard. But there will be games where your opponent simply pressure you extremely hard and you're just not able to win, right? You always feel like you're trying to play catch up every single round. So that's where the learning of this particular video is going to be. We're going to be focusing on the idea of tempo, how to create tempo, and how to turn a tempo deficit into a tempo positive so that you're putting your opponent on the back foot and you're forcing your opponent to react to you instead of you to them. We're also going to talk a little bit more about aggro. So far in this tutorial series, I've just been focusing on standard. And there's a reason for that, right? When you're playing standard, you're primarily focusing on the specific unit combinations, and you become very good at recognizing these type of patterns. But what you don't get a lot of practice in is the timing of how units engage with your opponent's army. In standard, both armies are very far apart, so even if certain units get a little bit ahead or a little bit behind, it doesn't quite matter as much. But when you're playing aggro, when units are on the line, if your units are not there, for example, if your chaff is not there to tank at that exact moment, and then your opponent has a melting point and gets logged onto your tarantula, for example, that could spell disaster for your board, right? The same goes if you're doing some sort of flanking and you're distracting some of your opponent's army while your army is running into him. That is a bit of a problem as well. So if you want to get up to 1800 MMR, you have to understand unit positioning in relation to the timing of when these units engage. So we're going to talk a little bit about aggro as well. And we're going to play a couple games where I walk you through what it's like between the 1500 and 1800 MMR, my observation on how, what are some common pitfalls for players within this range, and how you can recognize them, exploit them, and hopefully be better and not be exploited by these common pitfalls. All right, so right now, what you're watching is actually a game between me and Chemtrails. This is a aggro game, both of us having units fairly close to the line, and we're just trying to wrestle here. So what is aggro? In the simplest terms, aggro just means you have your units all the way in the line, right? You're playing aggressively instead of defensively while you have your units by the tower. The key theme of aggro is get to the tower. The secondary theme of aggro, of course, is to kill your opponent's units, right? But that is the general theme of Mechabellum games at large. So let's talk about get to the tower. How is aggro different from standard? Well, first of all, there are certain opportunities that you can exploit in aggro that you simply cannot in standard. The first opportunity is the power of the flanks. In standard, imagine if all my units right now are by this tower, and if I deploy like this cluster of flanking units here, these units will get killed in relatively short order, and then whatever units that killed them will just simply catch up to the main army while they're engaging sort of in this large middle zone, right? But in aggro, you're actually taking out part of your opponent's army. By the time they clear your flank, there may not be an army to rejoin, because while they're fighting the flank at the front, your army is also fighting his army. And if you can successfully tie up certain chaff waves or certain high value units, allowing your army at the front to do more damage, then it becomes extremely powerful. And this is something that you simply cannot reproduce in standard, because your initial engagement doesn't happen until a few seconds later, whereas in aggro, you start fighting right away at the front and right away at the flank. Right, so that's the first difference, which is the power of the flanks. The second difference, which is also related to the positioning of aggro, is that whatever mistake or whatever weaknesses on your opponent's board can be exploited with a greater intensity in aggro and also greater effectiveness in aggro. So for example, last round, I noticed that while most of my army are situated on the right-hand side, my opponent is leaving his tower wide open. In standard, if you want to exploit something like this, so imagine again, your army down here, right, waiting to walk into the fight up here, and then you notice, well, maybe there's a tower that's wide open. By putting units here, you can not really draw, because whatever your opponent, imagine your opponent also has army by the tower, chances are the entire army would just be moving towards this little cheeky flank. Because the way that Mechabellum targeting works, they always try to target the closest unit. But in aggro, every single one of my opponent's units already have someone or some unit that's closer than this flank, because everything's on the line. So that allows me to quickly sneak in and get the damage I need with these phantom rays. And sometimes there are more weaknesses, and sometimes you can create weaknesses in a aggro position. So I'll show you an example after this turn. All right, so for example, last round, I wanted to make sure that I get this tower. In order to get this tower, I need to do two things. The first thing is that I need to remove whatever chaff is in front of this tower. So I had a Vulcan right here, specifically for that purpose. The second thing is I want to make sure whatever is defending behind the tower continues to get stuck behind the tower. And that's where this flank comes in. So I am removing a problem, which are these chaff, and I'm also creating a problem for my opponent, which is tying up his defenders at the flank. So whatever's at the front of the tower becomes super exposed, and that allows my heavy gunner phantom rays with the item to just plow through and get to the tower. So these are the type of tricks that is very powerful in aggro, not very usable in standard. And then finally, so we talk about tempo, we talk about the power of flanks and exploiting mistakes, right? And then where is the, the most fundamental type of mechanic here in aggro, which is the timing of your units. And specifically, I think the most important part of that is the timing of your chaff. In aggro, you have this entire space to put chaff down, right? When you're playing standard, chances are you have like from the tower to this back line to deploy your chaff, and you can maybe put down 4 waves of chaff. But in aggro, if you want to, you can have up to 8, if not more, waves of chaff. You can have 4 waves of just crawlers. You can have a crawler right here, you can have a crawler right here, 3rd wave, and then the 4th wave, and they will go in a continuous stream, and making sure that your opponent would be just kind of stuck shooting at these crawlers. After your crawlers are done, you can put fans, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here. So you have all this space for you to use chaff. Now, most aggro players don't use this entire space for 8 groups of chaff, but they do use crawlers, at least the 4 groups of crawlers. And how to effectively use your chaff line to make sure that whatever units at the front, which immediately start shooting when the turn starts, will continue to shoot without being targeted by your opponent's unit, is a key concept in aggro play. Alright, so that is a bit of introduction to aggro and also what you'll be learning in this video. And we're going to jump into a couple games where I'm going to play aggro. So we're going to talk about some tempo, we're going to talk about chaff lines, we're going to talk about unit positioning, and also identifying and exploiting weaknesses, and also creating weaknesses using the flank. Alright, let's jump into a game. Alright. Since we're going to be playing aggro, let's go ahead and see what do we want to do here. We can do elite. You can certainly play aggro as elite with crawlers. You can also play aggro with quick supply. In this case, let's go elite. Alright. My opponent has steel balls, which means we can probably do something like this. Into steel balls, I actually like using arc lights. Alright. Now, I don't know which side the steel balls are going to be coming in from. And since I do have the slower units, so I'm going to defend on both sides. There's a very good chance that they're just going to come in from this side. Most people do choose to go on the left-hand side. But that's just my speculation. Alright. Okay, so it's going to be both sides, which I don't mind at all. Okay, immediately you notice that there is a couple gaps in this position. And my opponent is also kind of playing aggro, just having units above the tower. Alright, the steel balls are being tied down by my crawlers. The arc lights are not sufficient enough to deal with pretty much the sledgehammers. Level 2 arc lights are decent into steel balls. They actually do good damage. Okay. Improved Tarantula is a great card when you're playing aggro. Tarantulas are extremely tanky. And also, they are, like, with the additional splash range of 4, they can chaff clear extremely well. So, I think I'm gonna go take the improved Tarantula. My opponent is Fire Badger spec. Let's see. He might put a Fire Badger on this side, simply because there was already 2 arc lights on this side. And the question is, do I want to build a Tarantula this turn? I think I can. A level 2 Tarantula can actually deal with steel balls, okay? So we're going to put Tarantulas down this turn, and then we're going to start selling out of the arc lights next turn. Okay. We got Fire Badgers here. This is actually good because the Fire Badgers are locking onto my Tarantulas, which means my Crawlers is able to get in there and deal with the steel balls. Yep, this is good. On the other side, we have steel balls coming into my tanks. Not a big deal. The level 2 arc light is going to do a lot of work. And with luck, I might be able to get the shield. Just a little Too little. That's alright. We'll figure that out next turn. Alright, intensive training could be interesting, but my units are already level 2, so probably not the best use of intensive training. Assault Scorps could be interesting. Everything else is, I don't need to have more speed. I'm already going with the improved Tarantulas, so they walk quite fast. So I think it's okay to skip here. We are going to sell a few things. We're gonna add another Tarantula here. And potentially, right now I'm a little concerned about this cluster because the steel balls, they are, you know, they could very well just lock onto me. So let's see here. Alright, let's pull these crawlers away. So you see how I'm clicking on these lines here? Because I want to know if that I'm able to pull some crawlers without pulling the steel balls away. Alright, let's do it this way. Alright, the steel balls are now level 2. A little scary. Alright, one of them is being pulled away. That's good. Okay. That Tarantula did not survive, but not too worried. Alright, my right hand side is falling, and this level 2 steel ball is still surviving, but that's okay. I have one more level 2 Tarantula, and then the next turn I'm just gonna add even more on the other side. I'm not too worried about this. Okay. Now, in terms of tempo, Tarantula Melting Point could certainly be a very potent combination. Alright, let's go with Tarantula Melting Point. We are going to need a little bit of chaff here. And also, we're going to provide a little bit of flank here. So we're going to get to the tower. On this side, I think we're decent in our setup. But we definitely could do more on the other side. For now, we are going to put some... Let's see. So the melting point was offered. So that is a little bit concerning because my tarantulas themselves they're feeling a little bit naked. Alright, we're gonna do see here. I'm gonna try to put a cheeky missile on the side. We're going to see where he's going to put his unit. Alright, it's going to be a level 3 Farseer. Level 3 Farseer and ranged steel balls. Okay, so that just means I need range on my units as well. Not a big issue because of the improved Tarantula. They actually, as you can see right here, they're dealing with steel balls quite nicely. The Farseer, I don't think was the right choice. It does not have enough firepower to deal with the Tarantula. Okay, so now I know that he's going to go harder into steel balls. Chances are I'm going to sell this melting point. Originally, I was a little concerned about things like the boats. or even just fortresses. But for now, if he's not gonna go, like he's gonna go heavier into steel balls, then I'm not too worried. Well, round 5. I could take super supply. All right, we're gonna take drill. Drill specifically because I wasn't sure if he's gonna put another Arclight here, and even if he does at level 1, it's not gonna be that great. So we're gonna take drill, and we're also gonna put another tarantula on the side here, just to cause a little bit more problem for my opponent. Now, since he did take range on his steel balls, we want to make sure that we are covered. Okay. Level 3 hacker. All right, interesting. Okay, level 3 steel balls, also a little deadly. Alright, so it's a weird combination of hacker and steel ball. And I guess the answer is really just a lot of chaff, right? Okay. So there's 2 options. One is I can just go a lot of chaff. The second option is I can just go on boats. Both are good options. And speaking of boats, here it is. All right. I'm gonna take +1s. I'm gonna have a little missile here on both sides so we don't get overwhelmed. Alright, level 4 steel balls. Scary. Okay, good tower. And the tarantulas are breaking through. Alright. I mean, if you're giving me scorpions, I probably should take them, huh? Let's take the scorpions. The scorpions are good because we have high-level steel balls, and we do want to deal with them in a timely fashion. Now I have no upshoot, which is a concern. I want to get a single upshoot. I'm going to take temp range. I'm going to start leveling up some of these crawlers. You know what? Let's give everybody a level up. Alright, for my opponent, it's going to be Mustangs. Not too concerned about Mustangs, because my improved Tarantulas actually deal with Mustangs quite well. And also my Scorpions deal with them quite well. Okay, gonna get tower. Scorpions are gonna pop these steel balls. And that's gonna be GG. Alright, let's take a look at the game real quick. Let's talk about what are some learnings. I mean, unfortunately, I wasn't talking too much. I wasn't giving an in-depth instruction as I was playing the game. But let's take a quick look at the board. So at first, we noticed that there was a bit of a back and forth on unit counters. My opponent knew that I took the improved Tarantula very early on, and his answer has always been steel balls to counter. There was a very strange pivot into hackers with double tech, so that was a single hacker, double tech, very expensive. I feel like if you are going to go with steel balls, I'll probably stick with the steel balls into steel ball Mustangs. That could probably work. Now, keep in mind, I do have level 3 Tarantula, so a pivot like this is usually not recommended, especially if you're taking techs on them. For me, I think what really worked here is one, having a flank right here. This flank has effectively tied this unit, this crawler, Farseer, right, all the way to that side. And what that allows me to do is to have an open entrance to the tower with the units at the front. The second flank has captured the tower more than once, so that was very good as well. And what this also helps is it prevents my opponent from having any sort of chaff line beyond what's in front of the tower. So essentially, these crawler, bang, that's all the chaff that our opponent's going to get, because everything behind the tower are getting pulled to the side. Right? A similar case here, everything behind the tower gets pulled to this Tarantula. And because of that, once the initial chaff clears, I have a huge opportunity to start doing damage on them with my improved Tarantulas. My opponent never really pivoted into air, so that was a missed opportunity. You notice me saying at the last round as I have no upshoot. That's been the situation for a couple rounds. In fact, this was my first upshoot, unless you count the melting point. And my opponent could certainly exploit that fact a little bit earlier. A great combination that he could try is to have so he's got these chaff clear units, right? He's got his arc lights. He could try to go with boats with artillery cannon, so Overlord with artillery cannon. Those are decent into units like Tarantulas, into units like Scorpion. He could go with Phoenixes, which is also decent into this type of unit. He could go with Phantom Rays, right? But because he did not exploit that and then instead playing to my tempo, so I have been putting a lot of pressure with this ranged and improved Tarantula, and he's just been so busy countering these units instead of creating a problem for me. I was able to just keep pressuring and eventually win the game, right? So the takeaway from this game is one, having flank stops the chaff line from behind the tower for the opponent, right? And then two, instead of just countering whatever your opponent has directly, so in this case using steel balls to counter a heavy unit like Tarantula, you can also create a new problem for me, because the steel balls is not creating any new problem for me. Either your steel ball outscale my Tarantula or they don't. If they don't outscale my Tarantula kills it. If they do, it kills my Tarantula. But that's not that bad because I can just get some Scorpions and then problem solve. And these are level 1 Scorpions with double shot, and it's killing not exactly level 4 steel balls in one shot, but definitely level 3 steel balls in one shot, right? But if you introduce air units in the form of Phoenixes, Phantom Rays, or overlords, then I will have to answer, and that's going to take away from my momentum. All right, so let's jump into another game. Let's see if we can learn a little bit more about the gameplay at this level. All right, we are going to continue to play aggro, and in this case, we're going to go with steel balls. Steel balls was one of those units that I've had a lot of problems with when I was in the 1600 range. I just didn't understand the unit. I always thought they were sort of a mini melting point, and I sometimes used them and throw them at fortresses, and you can guess how that turned out. But once you experiment with this unit, I went through a phase where I play exclusively Steel Ball plus Wraith for, I don't know, for like an entire month. And I've grown to learn to love the Steel Ball a little bit more because I find that they are quite powerful. They provide quite a lot of pressure in the right context. So it's quite enjoyable to play. All right. So when you're playing aggro, one thing to note is that the position that I have right now is called asymmetrical aggro. So you have your units on the line, and with the intention of just overpowering your opponent and get tower. When you do asym aggro, you want to have a single squad of crawlers or something dead in the middle, okay? Because the worst thing that could happen to an aggro position is when you have a fight that's happening at the tower, and then your opponent sneaks in like a single crawler from behind the tower straight to your tower. And that is just the most frustrating thing. And I don't want to deal with that, right? So in this case, we're going to do crawler at the front, in the middle. And that is going to draw pretty much everything from this area. Unless my opponent is also going aggro this way, I think units should be drawing over to my side. Okay. Right. These Mustangs, unfortunately, they're just a little bit too far forward. So they're actually going to run straight to the tower. So that is very unfortunate. I was actually trying to illustrate a point, but normally you don't see Mustangs positioned that way. But in this case, that's all right. He can get my tower because by the time he finishes the tower, he will have no army to actually fight and take advantage of the tower timing. So I'm okay with that. Next turn, I'll probably try to put something there to help with the defense of the Mustangs. But for now, I'm pretty happy with the outcome of the first round. So let's talk about tempo. My opponent has a serious tempo problem. I have tempo. I have the initiative. I have a problem that my opponent will have to answer, which gives me the opportunity to create more problems. So what is the problem? Well, he has no answer to the steel balls on his side. None of his units, right? The Mustangs, the crawlers, can really answer the steel balls. Now, lucky for him, Scorpion is being offered, and Scorpion is the direct answer to medium-sized units like the steel balls. So that is a bit it's a bit unfortunate. For me, I have to take the Phoenix because I have 0 upshoot. All right, where is he gonna put the Scorpion? My guess is probably somewhere here. I am missile spec, which means I get to use the missile for this, and I'm thinking of just getting rid of these Mustangs. All right, and with that out of the way, we are going to put some Phoenixes down. We're going to add another arc light right here. Okay. Now, when you're playing aggro, your backline is very soft. There's no units there to defend. So you might want to make sure that you have something to defend. In this case, I think 2 missiles should suffice. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put 2 missiles. Notice that I put them fairly in the back, so that way that if the Mustangs do try to shoot the tower, they're not going to get into range from the top. Surprisingly, my opponent did not select scorpions, which I believe might be a mistake. I don't think the Farseer is that efficient of a clear for the steel balls. Okay, and because he didn't choose the scorpions, he is still at my mercy. I still have the tempo in this game, and now my steel balls are leveling. It becomes a little bit more scary. Okay. Rhino Assault in a aggro position is very good. Remember from the last game, anything you have a flank, right? It kind of ties your opponent's unit, allowing your guys to move in very quickly. Rhino Assault does exactly that. And Rhino Assault is also very good for your, like, if they were trying to distract you as well. So I just want to make sure that I'm defended here. So I'm going to actually put an extra missile here. Let's see. So we got Mustangs here. We're going to put some crawlers here. And we're going to Rhino Assault right here in the middle. Actually, we can probably just do it right here. And just get rid of that Mustang right there. In the center, I feel like these crawlers are actually doing a lot of work. So with 50 left over, let's see. Let's give this crawler a level. And then we're going to take a free unlock. Okay, units are being pulled. Level 2 crawlers in the middle, they're definitely doing a lot of work. Okay, because the units are being pulled to the side, the tower is now wide open. The phoenixes are now just getting in. Alright, we're going to get to that tower. Alright, we're going to get to that tower before that rhino is actually getting to my tower. So hopefully, before he finishes the tower, I finish off his army, and I did. Perfect. Alright, rhino's coming over. It's unfortunate because he's triggering all my missiles, so that is a bit of a waste. But a small price to pay, I think. Alright. Improved Wraith, very enticing, but I think it's going to have to be intensive training. We're going to intensive train this guy here. Alright. We'll continue to have Mustangs. That's okay. We're going to build out our chaff line a little bit more. So now we have chaff line all the way to the back here. We're going to put a single cheeky missile. Okay. My opponent took 4 to 5 Mustangs, which allows them to survive more shots from my arc lights at the expense of course, just a bit of a distance. So now they have to fight very close. I think the answer to that is just more arc lights. Arc lights are naturally very good into units like Mustangs, and there's no reason for me to not to do that. But because he has these sort of tanky Mustangs, it's creating a bit of an issue with me. Okay. Alright. Go around here, getting a Farseer Mustang comp going. Heavy armor. Okay. Since you're gonna go heavy into Mustangs, Let's just go heavier into arc lights. We're gonna put heavy armor on the steel ball here. I think it was doing a lot of work. All right, happy with this. Now remember, farseers themselves are actually not great at chaff clear. They're okay. I mean, they're technically clearing, but they're not great, right? So once you clear out these Mustangs, there's no chaff clear left over, which means you can essentially overwhelm them. All right, scorpions, rhinos, sandworm. I think the sandworm is interesting here. I have fairly decent chaff clear at this point. A lot of arc lights as well. I think might be okay to just take charge shot. But I think I'm going to go ahead. Scorpion was offered one more time, so I have a feeling that my opponent might just take the scorpion. How are my steel balls doing? They're not doing great. So let's go ahead and sell one of you. And let's put a mobile beacon towards that. Okay. Seems pretty good to me. Let's get speed. Alright, we got Vulcan. Actually, Vulcan on both sides. Pretty good. But the sandworm still retaining tempo, so I'm creating problems that he needs to resolve. Because the sandworm, I mean, right now there's nothing on this board that can actually kill sandworms. Alright, now that we know that the Vulcans are on the board, I think it might be time just to take charge shot on the arc lights. Okay, additional deployment slot. I think that's good. I'm going to take charge shot here. We are also going to put Phoenixes down in the back. We are going to go ahead and drop a Rhino on top of the Mustangs here. And then we're going to have 4 of you getting into the tower. Lots of crawlers in the middle, so I want to make sure that we are answering. How are my steel balls doing? They're not doing too well. We're going to take that, and we're just going to take these. I'm going to add more arc lights here. And since this very well could be the last round, let's just go ahead and see what can we do. Let's put some oil down. There's a lot of Mustangs here, so having oil might help here. Alright, so we got melting point, which suck. But the problem though is we got 4 sandworms. So yes, he can have, you know, whatever he needs, but eventually I'm going to get your tower, and yeah, your melting point is just not going to survive. All right, and that's going to be a good game because I have multiple sandworms, and with just the Farseer, there's not going to be any problem. Okay, so let's talk about this game real quick. I think this game, my opponent never quite got back the tempo. So initially, what happened is I had this ring of arc lights with steel balls. He needed something to deal with the steel balls. I thought having the Scorpion would have been the perfect choice. The Scorpions are great into arc lights. They're great into steel balls. But instead, he chose the Farseer, which is sort of a half-assed solution to his problem. And because he never was able to solve the steel ball problem, I was allowed to keep the steel balls on the field for as long as I needed to. I mean, I never really need to sell them out until they were level 2 Farseers and also level 2 Vulcan, right? And because I had the opportunity of just continue to build on that pressure, that gives me the option to just go hard into the arc lights. The Sandworm was a great opportunity because it gave them something that it's just not prepared for in his board. I have excellent chaff clear, and I just needed some sort of shock trooper, and Sandworm just came in just in time. If I didn't have the Sandworm, I probably would have bought Phantom Rays, or I probably could have just gone with Fortresses, both of which are going to be pretty good into aggro. I didn't flank that much because I didn't actually need his units to be staying behind. I think the Mustang, like the arc lights themselves, naturally kill Mustangs. So I actually want the Mustangs to run into the arc lights. One way that you can potentially play this is to have arc lights in the corner. So that's going to tie up a bunch of his units. I didn't do that only because I needed to clear whatever's at the front so that my sandworms can go and do work. For the final round, I actually didn't know where he dropped his Rhino, but I had the Phoenixes right here in the middle. In case he does drop the Rhino in the middle, the Phoenixes will turn around while the Crawlers tie them down. All right, let's try another game and let's see if we can learn something more from this MMR range. All right, let's go Typhoon Spec. And we're going to continue to go aggro. We're going to continue to create problems at the front and try to find weaknesses that we can pressure into. All right, my opponent has steel balls, steel ball crawler. So it's a very potent combination. And this time, instead of just going just a straight up symmetrical board, I'm going to try to go ASIM. So why am I going ASIM? Well, I am Typhoon Spec. So later on, I can simply develop a side if it just does decide to go on our side. We're still going to have a pack of crawler right here in the middle in case he does want to have crawlers pull over to the side. All right. Okay, very strange. It's going to be a backline ball with crawler. All right, at least these crawlers are running towards me, which is good. Hopefully they will continue to run towards me instead of going to the tower. Thank you very much. All right, good tower timing here. Now, while my chaff clear isn't stellar, but with the tower timing and with almost 2 full squads of tanks still left over, I think I'll be okay for the first round. All right. So what I want to play this game is I actually want to do Phantom Rays with Typhoons. It is a extremely potent combination. It's almost like a hit squad type of game where you just build 3 units over and over and over. Alright, so in this case, let's see. We probably want to have this defensively. And we're going to buy some Phantom Rays. With Phantom Rays, we're going to put them right here. Actually, you know what? Let's put them right in the corner. Let's do corner Phantom Rays. And we're going to add another squad of crawlers. Okay. Now the tower is a bit wide open. My opponent decided to add stone crawlers. And taking a loan, okay. You must really want to win this side of the game. That's alright. Alright, come on, crawlers. Let's move. Let's move to the side. Unfortunately, my opponent's crawlers are engaging a little bit better. And I think he is going to get tower before I do. But here's the good thing. He's got no upshoot. So sometimes you can cheese your way out of a game that you may not, that you're just not sure of. But this is me cheesing. The good thing about cheesing is you can also get that level on that Phantom Ray. Level 2 Phantom Ray is actually quite powerful. Thank you, sir. Alright, so now we have the Typhoon. We also have a shield drop, which is good. I'm going to put Typhoon here. We're going to put another crawler back here. And we're going to do, let's do it this way. Let's do Typhoon. Crawler. And we're going to pull, we're going to add pressure on this side. This side feels weak at the moment. So we're going to try to pressure it and see if we can make it stronger. In terms of my frontline units, this is fine. I'm going to put a missile down here, just in case anything cheeky comes along. Alright, the crawlers are coming in. They're dealing with the Typhoon. Typhoons are warping in. Typhoons aren't the best at Chapter, but they're certainly decent. Alright, the shield certainly paid for itself. And also, because all his units are being pulled by this flank, I actually was able to sneak in some crawlers and take in tower. So this is where you can start to see the power of aggro, right? Because your units are so close together, so the moment that their defenders move away from their supposed positions, then you have a huge opportunity just to do what you need to do. All right. So here, we notice that this side is being taken care of. What isn't being taken care of is at the front here. So we're going to add more Typhoons. And this time, we're going to add a Rhino to it. All right, let's see. Scorpion is offered, so I'm a little wary of potentially being scorped. We're going to add another group here. And this group is just there for the tower. All right, we're going to add a missile in case they put a squad of fans up here. I'm a little afraid of just having scorpions right on this side. We'll see. So far, these marksmen aren't really doing much. We're going to put another missile down here. And I think we're happy with this. Alright, so we got scorpions on both ends. Yep, so this was what I was talking about. A little bit afraid of that. Not too worried, though. Okay, Rhino coming in. Rhino gonna get tower, which means the Scorpion is gonna get killed by the Phantom Rays. And also it means my level 2 Phantom Rays is gonna do a lot more damage than it's supposed to. Hopefully bring down this level 3 Scorpion. Next turn I'm gonna take Cloak, which increases his damage by 40%. Level 2 Rhino has no answer. Continues to push in. Alright. So at this point, we're just going to rinse and repeat, and we're going to build 3 units only, and that is Typhoon, Phantom Rays, and Crawlers. Okay. Deployment module. None of this is interesting. I'm going to level you. We're going to take that. First, we're going to add a Crawler here. We're going to grab the shield. Tanks, they are okay. This one is not doing too well, so I want to get rid of this tank. Let's see. We'll probably get rid of the Rhino. The tank here, we can like get this leveled up so it can continue to deal with the steel balls. And in that case, since we have Scorpions, we're going to keep building Phantom Rays. And we're going to add more Crawlers. Okay, so that's my board. Phantom Rays and Crawlers. Range Scorpions, aiming directly at my Typhoons, so I will need to have a little bit more distraction. The targeting of the Typhoon is not great. It's actually locking onto the Scorpion, so I don't like that at all. Okay, we'll have to fix that next turn. Did get tower on this side because of the Phantom Rays. And we're going to get tower once again. Cloak is helping a lot into this marksman, so there's really no answer for that. Not quite game yet, I don't think. But we're getting close. Alright, so we got to fix a few problems. Okay, so we got the Wraith, we got the Fortress, we got the Farseer. Alright. We'll probably take the Farseer. I'm going to sell the Farseer. We are going to take the Crawlers. They're going to get Drill. The Typhoon is super annoying, but let's try to do something. See here. Alright, we're gonna tie them down here because there's no chaff clear here whatsoever. We'll get a missile here. And we're gonna build another board of Phantom Rays up front. As far as the shield goes, Oh, he actually took replicate last round. Which means we do have a bit of an issue. Alright, we're gonna go double tech because he might just go double tech his own. Alright, so this Phantom Ray, his only job is to get in there and get tower. And guess what's not in front of the tower? Well, any sort of defender. Alright, popping, gets the tower. Beautiful. The rest of the Phantom Ray still doing what they're supposed to do. And my opponent surrendered. So, here is where you can see just how well the flank works. The only defender for this tower is really the squad of Fangs and a Stormcaller and an Arclight. His entire side is being drawn to my flank right here. And if he doesn't do doesn't do defense at the front, you can easily exploit something like this. The other side is a little better because he has the Scorpion, right? That deals with the Typhoon. That's really nice. He's got the Wraith for any sort of chaff clear on his crawlers, which is also very nice. But aside from that, I mean, there's not much he can do. I also have the crawlers coming in from behind, so these are double tech crawlers, which means they do pack quite a lot of damage. But overall, I think this is a good game. I think my opponent simply is just a little overwhelmed with how to handle this sort of Phantom Ray Typhoon combination. They are quite potent. So you can try this for yourself, right? All you need to do is to have it set up and then just build Typhoon, Crawler, Phantom Ray at wherever my opponent is the weakest. So at first we start doing flank here, and then I notice it's weak here. And I noticed there might be opportunity at the front to rush the tower. And then now I'm starting to build another cluster right here at the front to rush the tower, right? Now, if there is a next turn, I'll probably add what Typhoon, Crawler, and then go into the tower. So a very tricky way to defend that, because in order to defend this cluster, you'll need some sort of anti-air, and it can't just be marksmen. Marksmen are not good into Phantom Rays with Cloak. You need some sort of heavy HP, so like a Scorpion, and then you need chaff clear. So he will have to answer with at least 3 units. There's a tricky defense. All right, we're going to jump into one last game for this tutorial, and then we're going to do a quick summary. Okay, so we're going to keep playing Aggro. What do I want to do? I want to do Fire Badger. Fire Badger Phantom Rays. Let's do that. You can probably tell right now I'm going through a Phantom Ray phase. And that is true. And I love Phantom Rays. I hope Bear like never nerfs the unit. It's just such a fun unit to play. And it has its obvious weaknesses, but overall I just think it's such a good unit to play. Alright. What's going on here? We have Mustangs. Mustang crawlers. Into tarantulas. Okay. Now keep in mind, next turn we're gonna get Fire Badger, so they are quite tanky. And the question is, do you want to keep your tarantula? I may not need to keep my tarantula, actually. I'm not in a hurry. Okay. Alright, for the first one, we're just gonna do this. Alright, ASIM. He's probably not gonna win the first round, but depends on where my opponent goes. Okay, still got crawlers on the board here. My Mustangs are starting to work on this tarantulas, but they are freaking tank eaters. So much HP, and they're fortified specialists, so definitely not going to win this first round. Very unfortunate, but hey, what can you do? We noticed that we have a squad of Fangs slipping through to the tower. Not ideal. But these are Fangs, so they walk very slow. So right now the tempo is with my opponent. I have to answer this tarantulas. But since I was already going Phantom Rays, so I'm not too worried about this tempo. We're gonna skip here because I want to get 2 units of Phantom Rays. And we're gonna put Fire Badgers at the front. It's okay to let this Fang kind of come down there. I have no problem with it. Shield. More crawlers. That's all right. Okay, good tower timing. All right. Missile is going to be huge here. Underground threat is going to be pretty good as well. I'm going to start selling out of these Mustangs. I'm going to add another squad here. And also Phantom Rays. All right. Okay, so for this one, he is going to underground the back door here. And he will get it. However, can I get some units before he does? Looking a little rough. Oh, I still have crawlers on the ground here. Okay. And the Phantom Race was not able to get onto the marksman, so that was a bit of an issue. Alright, we can fix that. Triple Stonecrawlers is pretty good. I'm gonna take Cloak on the Phantom Rays. We're gonna start selling out of the Mustangs. We're gonna put oil here just to deal with the line at the center. Okay. And then next round, we're going to take range on the Fire Badger, and we're going to put down even more Phantom Rays. One thing I do want to start putting down is Phantom Rays at the flank. Okay. Rays are doing well. Very good. Bombard. We are going to do Bombard here. We get a few more rays. All right, let's see. Gonna take range on this. I think the Bombard could probably move a little bit forward. So I want to get all the snipers. Take +1. Okay, melting point. So is this possibly a multi-melter down in the future? I can take loose at some point because all he has for chap clear are tarantulas, and tarantulas themselves are actually not that great into loose crawlers. Okay. Melting point not able to bring down the high level Phantom Rays. So there will be multi-melter next turn, which means we have to be prepared with EMP Phoenixes, or in this case, probably just Stonecrawlers, right? Yeah, let's go with Stonecrawlers. Hmm. Let's take loose here. All right, multiple melting points. And Vulcan. Alright, a good few missiles. And also with all these giants left over, this could be a big problem. I think it's time for burst on the Phantom Ray. So they got two options. I can get launcher overload on these Stonecrawlers. Or I can get burst. Let's get launcher overload. Who's doing the most damage? You're doing the most damage, okay. Get rid of you so that I can start shooting. Range on the melter, no multi-melter just yet. Okay, Stonecrawlers are doing a lot of work. Okay, still no multi-melter, but since I already have EM, I think it's time for me to just go heavier into the Phantom Rays. Let's do that. Rhino, not quite. Get the warn. We don't need it, so we can sell it. We're gonna go heavier into rays. Mostly focusing on this side, I think. We are going to need a few shield in case he decides to missile me. And with the additional money, I'm going to put a defensive missile here. We'll leave that one standing. Go this way. That. And possibly do this. Alright. So here comes the multi-melter. The multi-melter is actually doing a lot of work. Unfortunately, my stone crawlers, they're not getting the missiles in, which is concerning. But I did get tower. So with some luck, my stone crawlers should be able to overcome the AM devices. And there it is. Once you disable the multi-melter, then they become highly inefficient into Phantom Rays. Alright, that's GG. So let's take a look at the battle. Remember, we have to practice deliberately, so we have to understand what we did wrong. We knew the multi-melter was coming from like 3 turns ago, and we made a choice of using Stonecrawlers as our source of EM. But now looking back, I feel like that might be a potential risk because our primary damage dealer is missile-based, which is Phantom Rays, and then our source of EM is also missile-based. So not the biggest fan of that. We were offered sledgehammers, and my sledgehammer does also run EM, so that may be a good option. The issue right now, though, I think is just melting point outranging my tanks. So I didn't want to use my tanks because they might get killed before I can latch onto the melting point. The usual source of EM would just be phoenixes. So you put phoenixes directly in front of the melting point, right? Because once everything in front of them clears, the phoenix will just lock onto the melting point and indefinitely EM them. Because once you lock onto a unit, they will just keep shooting until it dies. Stormcaller is a little weird in that sense. I think Stonecrawlers still lock onto the unit until they dies, but sometimes they like to target switch. So that was my biggest problem. Never really fully utilized the flank here. I mean, he's got so many lines of chaff. If I had just a single Fire Badger with like a crawler here just to tie them down for a little bit longer, that would have been huge, right? I'm happy that I did pull through with the Stonecrawlers. I mean, the strategy did work eventually, knowing that EM on the melting point is going to allow my Phantom Rays to do the job, but it was a little closer than I would like it to be. The Sledgehammer in the final round was interesting because it actually ties up my Phantom Rays for quite a bit. So if you're playing into Phantom Rays, having Sledgehammers like that, this is probably a good choice. But aside from that, I think is a pretty solid strategy. Yeah, so next time I'm probably just gonna ditch the Stormcaller and just go with Phoenixes and also have more flank. So it'll be a combination of Phoenix, Phantom Ray, Fire Badger with some chaff. All right, so that is going to be the final game for today's tutorial, but let's talk about what we learned so far, especially for if you're trying to get up to the 1800 MMR, right? So first thing is your understanding of tempo. Understanding of tempo means that you need to know when to introduce problems to your opponent and when to defend while introducing problems to your opponent, right? Remember that very first game where my opponent went for steel balls into improved tarantulas, where when he could have just gone with air, he could have gone phoenixes, he could have gone overlords. but instead he went with steel balls. Steel balls into improved tarantulas is a direct counter, I suppose, but it does not pose a problem to me because it's just a matter of who gets more levels. If my tarantula outlevels the steel balls, I win, and vice versa. But if he uses a boat, then all of a sudden nothing on my board can actually counter it until I get anti-air. So be very aware of how you can exploit your opponent's board and wrestle back that tempo. And then we talk a little bit more about aggro and how aggro is all about finding mistakes or finding weaknesses on your opponent's board and exploit them. Because of your armies are so close together, the impact of your exploitation is a lot bigger. And one of the examples of that is just to have flanks in the back, and that pulls his defenders away from the towers from the front, and it gives you a easy access towards the tower. And once you get a tower, you pretty much win the game, right? We talk about some unit combinations. I mean, we played 2 Phantom games, one with Typhoon and one with Fire Badgers. They behave very similarly, right? The Fire Badgers / Typhoon act like a meat shield in front of the Phantom Rays, and they also chaff clear. Phantom Ray with Cloak are extremely powerful, so if you're not answering them properly, then you're at the risk of being outscaled. The first game, we noticed that my opponent used anti-air marksman to defend against the Phantom Rays, but eventually it's just too many Phantom Rays. And then this game, we have Multi-Melter. Multi-Melter, in my opinion, is the better counter to Phantom Rays. However, they can also be countered with some sort of EM. And we learned that Stonecaller with EM, with Phantom Rays, probably gets countered too hard with anti-missile devices. So next time we're going to try Phoenixes. All right, so let me know if this is helpful, and let me know if this is helping you to get to the 1800 mark. But for me personally, getting comfortable with aggro and also getting comfortable with understanding tempo, flank, and just timing of positions has really helped me improve my game. If there's something that you really want to know, or if something that you feel like I've missed in this tutorial so far, let me know in the comments, and I'll make sure to add another video covering those topics. And in the meantime, if you want to see another video, here's one for you, and I will see you on the next one.
Prepare your tactics. Mechabellum's calling. Deploy your fortress. The battlefield's alive with swarms.